Yo, what's going on, y'all? It's Cone back here again today with another video, and today we're going to talk about the Sacramento Kings, who, to be quite honest, have been kind of a disaster for the past 16 years over that stretch. They've endured the longest playoff drought in NBA history. They haven't won 40 games even once over that period of time. They've had a number of good players, but they've all come and went. They've hired and fired numerous head coaches. I'm sure Kings fans know exactly how difficult it's been, and even last season, they had a typical Kings year where they went 30-52. They were the 12th seed in the Western Conference. Things really didn't seem to be going much of anywhere until this season, where now they're on pace for 50 wins. They're the second seed in the Western Conference. They've got 2 All-Stars. They've got a great cast of role players, many of them young and really promising. They've got one of the best head coaches in the NBA, one that should win Coach of the Year in my opinion. And they've got the Beam, and who doesn't love the Beam? It's been an amazing renaissance of the season for the Sacramento Kings, and it all happened just like that. So the question is, what did they do? How did they turn this team from a perennial loser into one of the best teams in a deep Western Conference, basically out of thin air? So in today's video, I'm going to talk about how the Kings turned things around, why they've been so good this season, and why I think the success is here to stay. Make sure you leave a like and subscribe if you enjoy, hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on any of these videos, and let's go ahead and get right into it. Now, before we talk about this year, let's first flash back to last season, where, like I said, the Kings had a pretty rough year. They went 30-52, were one of the worst teams in the Western Conference. De'Aaron Fox didn't have his best season. He seemed to take a bit of a step back from the year prior, which is normal for young guys. But as the #1 main franchise cornerstone, you want to see continuous progression. It wasn't anything super alarming, but it was a note of concern. Also, they fired their head coach Luke Walton pretty early on in the season, which wasn't a problem. It was something I thought should have happened a long time ago, but it did just add another element of turmoil to an already eventful Kings season. However, the biggest event of all was at the deadline when they shocked the world and traded really promising second-year guard Tyrese Halliburton, who was having a breakout sophomore season and seemed to be a rising all-star, to the Pacers in exchange for Domantas Sabonis, basically out of nowhere. This shocked the entire NBA world because, like I said, Halliburton was having such a good year and felt like theoretically a good fit next to De'Aaron Fox in the backcourt for years to come. There were some growing pains, and in that year, it did seem like they each played a lot better without the other one, but it did feel like there was plenty of room for the two of them to grow. Meanwhile, for Sabonis, he had been a multiple-time All-Star, and he did immediately seem to make the team better, but it didn't feel like what the Kings needed. They didn't feel like they were ready for a win-now type of move like acquiring Sabonis felt like. It felt like they were years away from making any type of real win-now push or even making the playoffs. Now, obviously, looking back, that was completely wrong, but at the moment that this deal went down, it was pretty much consensus, and it was an opinion that I kind of agreed with, that the Kings made a mistake dealing Tyrese Halliburton for Sabonis. However, I will note that post-trade, they looked really fun last season, and it felt like there was something to build off of with that duo. Maybe if they had a good offseason, a good draft, the Kings could somehow maybe make a push for the play-in the following season. However, they didn't just have a good offseason, they had basically a perfect one. They started things off by making a perfect hire for head coach in Mike Brown, luring him away from the then champion Golden State Warriors, where he spent multiple years as an assistant coach, and this was a move that was pretty much unanimously loved. I personally really like to pick up the idea of bringing a coach that was very experienced in winning. He had been part of one of the biggest dynasties in NBA history, and moving him to be the new leader of a team that desperately needed to find a way back to its winning ways of the early to mid-2000s. It hadn't had a successful season since that time, so bringing in a coach that was an integral piece of one of the most dominant teams of the decade made a lot of sense, and Mike Brown just seemed to be a good head coach in general. They then followed this up by getting some pretty good draft lottery luck as they jumped from the 7th pick to the 4th pick, where they would end up selecting Keegan Murray out of Iowa. This pick was scrutinized by some because Jaden Ivey, a very high upside guard out of Purdue, was still on the board. Some people thought maybe he could be the replacement for Halliburton in the backcourt. You have Fox, you have Ivey, you have Sabonis, and some other players. Maybe you've got a bright future there, but instead they decided to go for the more NBA-ready Keegan Murray, who projected as a solid defender, a solid off-ball wing, and a solid shooter, someone that could play really well off the duo of Sabonis and De'Aaron Fox, and eventually it felt like most people kind of came around to it, especially when he killed it in Summer League. Meanwhile, free agency is where basically everybody agreed that the Kings knocked it out of the park. They began by signing Malik Monk away from the Lakers for a 2-year, $20 million deal, reuniting him with De'Aaron Fox, who he played college ball with at Kentucky. He seemed like he could be a really solid fit at that shooting guard spot. He could create his own shot, but also play really well off ball, as he had just played with Russell Westbrook, LeBron James, and Anthony Davis, and had the best year he's ever had. He could knock down the three. It was a really solid signing. $10 million was nothing for a guy that had really high upside and is still pretty young. Then they compounded on this by trading for Kevin Huerter from the Atlanta Hawks, who were looking to move off of his salary, and all the Kings had to give up were Justin Holiday and Mo Harkless, as well as a protected 2024 first-round pick that, if it landed in the lottery, would stay with Sacramento. A really good showing from their front office, all on the same day, actually. Between the Sabonis trade and these offseason moves, Sacramento made it very clear what their vision was for this Kings team going forward. They were done with losing. They wanted to win any way possible. They were going to bring in all these high-level shooters and off-ball players to play alongside their two stars in De'Aaron Fox and Domantas Sabonis that they believed could be one of the best offensive duos in the league. They brought in Mike Brown, a known winner and a great leader, as their head coach. They were done losing. They were going to create a highly potent offensive team that could compete with the best of them in the Western Conference, which is exactly what they've done. So now let's talk about why the Kings have been so good. And when you talk about their success, you have to talk about their star duo first of De'Aaron Fox and Domantas Sabonis. We'll begin with Fox, who has been amazing so far. He's putting up a career high in points per game, he's having his best efficiency of his career, and has been the best clutch player in the league so far. In my opinion, they should basically give him the inaugural Clutch Player of the Year award right now. They could do it today, and I wouldn't be mad because he's been so much better than basically anybody else. He leads the league in clutch points per game with 5.5, which is 1.1 points per game more than anybody else. He shoots 55.7% in those clutch time moments. He's second in the NBA in total fourth quarter points, and he'll do it in a number of ways. He'll drill a mid-range jumper in your face no matter how much you contest it. He'll hit a pull-up three. He'll dash by you to the basket as the fastest guy in the NBA. His offensive arsenal overall, even outside of these fourth quarter or clutch time moments, has exploded. He has become one of the most dangerous guards in the league. His defense has also leveled up. He's been really solid on that end this entire season. He became a first-time All-Star, like I mentioned, and I wouldn't be surprised if he even made an All-NBA spot at the end of the year. That's how good he's been. The Kings bet on him for years to become their franchise point guard. He's finally taken that leap, and part of it is because of the other guys around him, but Fox himself has worked endlessly to improve and grow his game in a way that has made him one of the most dangerous guys in the entire sport. Alongside him, of course, is Domantas Sabonis, who is also probably having the best season of his career. He's averaging his second best points per game, by far a career high in efficiency, especially from deep where he's been really solid so far this season, although the volume isn't anything crazy. He leads the league in rebounds, and he's averaging 7 assists per game. This is all in addition to him being a serviceable defender down low. Now, he's not going to stop guys on the perimeter or be a high-level rim protector, but he can hold his own against some bigs. But obviously, his biggest impact lies on the offensive end, where he's been one of the best offensive frontcourt players this entire season. He's an elite offensive hub, one of the best in the league, and he pairs perfectly with De'Aaron Fox. Whether it's a pick and roll, a pick and pop, a dribble handoff, any offensive action, the two of them are going to run it to perfection. And it makes sense why when you take into account that Sabonis is a big body screener that can hit the mid-range jumper, can pop out from three or dive to the basket, and De'Aaron Fox is one of the fastest guys in the entire league that can blow by you if you don't commit to him in a second. Otherwise, if you guard it even perfectly, the two of them can make some amazing plays as both are high-level playmakers. It makes sense why they're one of the most dangerous offensive duos in the entire NBA. Additionally, he's a high-level interior force that if you have any smaller defender on him, he's going to back them all the way down to the basket, and even if you don't, Sabonis can also back down a lot of the bigger guys in the league. If you send two defenders, he's going to almost instantaneously make the right read, hit somebody on the perimeter, or just make some play out of basically thin air. A lot of their offense runs through him, and it's no secret why, because he has been incredible as a hub, and it's one of the biggest reasons why the Kings have the highest offensive rating in NBA history. This is also, of course, in part due to the excellent play of their offseason additions. Namely, Keegan Murray has been amazing as a rookie so far, one of the best in this class. He's averaging 12 points per game while shooting a lights-out 41% from deep. He's such a great release valve. If Fox or Sabonis get into the paint and they don't really have a play, Murray is basically always wide open on the perimeter to go ahead and knock down a three with the best of them. And in fact, he's on pace right now to potentially break Donovan Mitchell's record for most threes made in a season by a rookie. Then there's Kevin Huerter, who has also been one of the best shooters in the league so far this season, averaging 15 points per game while shooting 40% from deep, both of which are career highs for Red Velvet. And when you have him and Keegan Murray on the perimeter as 40% three-point shooters, alongside Fox and Sabonis, one of the most unstoppable offensive duos in the league, how do you guard that? Because even if you perfectly guard them in like a dribble handoff or pick and roll or some offensive action, You then have two 40% three-point shooters on the wings waiting to receive a pass from one of those two high-level playmakers. Even Harrison Barnes is shooting 37% from deep, also in that starting lineup. How do you guard that team? It's virtually impossible. Meanwhile, Malik Monk gives them a nice spark off the bench. He's putting up pretty similar stats to what he had in LA last season, despite playing less minutes, and he's capable of some crazy offensive explosions, as noted by his 45-point game against the Clippers a couple of weeks ago. Having a guy that can just pop off like that basically out of nowhere is so valuable for this Kings squad, and it makes them somehow even more dangerous offensively. Additionally, you have contributors like Trey Lyles, who shoots 37% from deep and has been on a tear recently. Terrence Davis, who plays some solid backup wing minutes and also shoots 37% from three. Davion Mitchell, who is a tenacious defensive guard off the bench. Chimezie Metu has had some solid moments, and the list goes on and on. So many guys have stepped up for this team night in and night out, even outside of their top players. It's just been such a joy to watch, and it speaks to why they've been so successful. And finally, of course, none of this comes together without Coach Mike Brown, who, like I said earlier in the video, should 100% be Coach of the Year. He set up the perfect offense for this personnel on the team, has ensured that basically everybody plays to their strengths. He's transitioned a 30-win team with some new additions into one of the best teams in the Western Conference, basically just like that. Everything is so well executed. They pass well, they move off ball well, they shoot well. They just seem to do everything so well. Night in and night out, they're one of those fun teams to watch every single game. Mike Brown doing this in his first season deserves a ton of credit. And this team as a whole, the fact that this is the first year that this core has all been intact, yet they're this good, speaks to how much better they can get in future seasons. The offense is so good that they're able to win most nights in spite of one of the worst defenses in the entire NBA. At the moment I'm recording this video, it is the 25th ranked unit, which isn't good. And it is worrying in playoff scenarios and going forward that they can't seem to get any stops. I mean, you probably saw their game against the Clippers where they won 176 to 175. That's not going to really fly in a playoff scenario when you're consistently playing some of the best offensive teams in the league. So I do think they need to address that in the offseason. But after the offseason that this front office just had, I trust them completely to make necessary adjustments when the year is over. But really, even if they can't stop you, you can't stop them. They're so unguardable, it's ridiculous. They're tied for the 4th best record in the NBA since January 1st. And with the Grizzlies in a bit of disarray, who are right behind them for the 2 seed, it seems really likely that Sacramento could secure that 2nd spot in the Western Conference heading into the playoffs. And every single night they're proving their doubters wrong again and again. I already made a video this season where I talked about how I was wrong about the Kings. I thought the Sabonis trade was a mistake. I didn't think they were going to end up making the playoffs. I thought they would maybe be a playing team at the very best. I was wrong, and I'm happy to admit it because I love this story of the Kings. I love to see the underdog, a young squad, rise up and become one of the best teams in the entire NBA. However, they do still have their doubters. Many people are counting them out already in the playoffs, saying that, ooh, I want my favorite team to be the one to go up against Sacramento in the first round. The Lakers, apparently, according to reports, are looking at the Kings as a potential first-round matchup, saying that's the squad that we want to face off against in the first round if we make the playoffs. But me personally, I am done doubting Sacramento. Sure, they don't have the experience of some of these other squads, and the defense is a bit of a concern, but this is a team full of guys that have been consistently doubted. They have one of the best offenses we've ever seen, and this franchise has been waiting for this moment, them and their fans. It's been 16 years since they've made the playoffs. There is no shot that they're just going to roll over and give up. They're going to say, okay, you know, we made the playoffs. We're cool with that. They're going to be hungry. They've got one of the best home court advantages in the NBA at the moment. Every single home game that they have, the fans show out in droves, and the atmosphere feels like the Game 7 of an NBA Finals every single time that they play at home. The squad is hungry. The teams, the front office, everybody on this team wants to win so bad. So while some of you may continue to doubt the Kings and say that they're going to lose in the first round, I'm not going to doubt them. I think the Kings have a real shot to make some sort of playoff run, and not only now, but for the foreseeable future. This team is young. It's their first season together, and don't let them win a series, because if they do, that beam might just burn a hole in the atmosphere and never stop glowing. With all that being said, I appreciate you watching. Please leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed. It really helps the channel out a lot, and comment down below how far you think the Kings are going to go in this year's playoffs. I appreciate y'all watching. I'll see y'all later. Real one, say it back.